This is Masechet Bava Kama Daf Chaf and Aleph at the bottom of the daf. Amar le Reb Chisda le Rami bar Chama. Reb Chisda says to Rami bar Chama, Lo avisa gabon beorta betchuma. You weren't with us at night betchuma in our area. Di ibayalon mile me'al yasa. When we had some really great questions, you missed it. Amar. So Rami bar Chama says, "My mili me'al yatsa." What were these great ideas that you had? Amarle, he answered, we discussed the following: Hadar bechatzer chavero shalom midato. If a person lives in the property of his friend shalom midato without the knowledge of the owner, tzarich la'alos lo schar o ein tzarich. Does the squatter have to pay rent to the owner, or does he not have to pay rent? That's the great question we had that you missed last night that we discussed at the shir. So the question is, hey chidami, what exactly are the details of the situation? What kind of a property is it? If it's a property, de lo kayom la'agra, which is not normally rented. A person lived on another person's property, not a property that was designated or intended to be rented. It was just a property that happened to be empty. V'gavra de lo avid lemegar, and if the person is not a person who normally would rent. Ze lo nehene v'ze lo chaser. Then why is it even a question? The squatter did not get any actual benefit because he wouldn't normally have rented. He wasn't saving rent. V'ze lo chaser, and the owner didn't lose anything. He wasn't going to rent it out anyway. So the Gemara continues. Ella, it must be b'chatzer. It must be that the courtyard is kaimala agra. The courtyard is the property normally would be rented. V'gavra de avid lemegar, and it's a person who normally would rent. Ze nehene v'ze chaser. Then it's the other extreme, and it's obvious that he should have to pay rent because the squatter benefited and the owner lost. So certainly ze nehene v'ze chaser should be obligated. So the Gemara says lo tricha must be the third scenario. B'chatzer de lo kaim la'agra. The property is not normally rented. V'gavra de avid lemegar, and it's a person who normally would rent. What would be the halacha in that case? Matzi amarle mai chasar ticha. Could he say the squatter to the owner, you didn't lose anything, why should I pay you rent? O Dilma, or perhaps Matzi Amar, or the owner. And the Tosfot here is Ze ein nehene v'ze ein chaserhu. Tosfot says, Afilu b'chatzer t'kaim la'agra v'gavra de lo avid lemegar. Even if we were talking about a case where the property was intended to be rented and the gavra and the squatter does not normally rent, havi masil meimar de pater. Pater will be true in that case as well. Kevan shalonena, because the principle is if there's no benefit, there's no reason to pay. Aval pisha garam I have said, and even though there's a cause for a loss lechavero to the friend, dafilu girshu chavero mi beisov v'nal dalas lefanav ein ze elegrama ba'alma. But you're not obligated to pay because the loss is only grama. And not only in this case, but even if it was more extreme, where not only did you squat, but you locked the door and locked the owner out of his own house, and he's damaged by not having a place to live, still you'd be patur because it's grama. So certainly here, it would be grama. And if you look at that Tosfot, there's an aleph here which points to the side of the daf to the Hagod Hagra. And here the Hagod Hagra makes note of the fact that Aval Harif v'sha'ar perushim katvu The Kihai Gavno Chayav Ayin Rush. The Rif says that even though Tosot is of the opinion that you're patur here because of grama, actually most it's a chotzer de lo kaim agra, gavra de lo avalemeger. It seems obvious to the Gemara that it should be patur. That it should be patur because ze lo nehene v'ze lo chaser. Again, so if it's a chotzer de kaimala agra and a gava de oven the megar, there it seems obvious that the halacha should be chayav because ze nehene v'ze chaser. Everything's going to say chayav, and the big question is, what about here? What would be the halacha here, where it is ze nehene? The squatter benefited, v'zeh lo chaser, but the owner didn't lose anything. Does the benefit make you obligated to pay for your benefit, or is it only if there's a loss to the owner? The Gemara does not address the question of the chaser de kaimala agra. This is omitted from the Gemara, and this is taken up by Tosfos. Therefore thinks that this was obviously the same thing, patur, because of grama. Now, most people say in this case, chayav, we'll just say rush, but it's really others as well, because even though it might be grama, since I am living at his expense and he's losing money, I will be obligated to pay rent. So there's a debate in this case, but these two are clearly patur and chayav, and the Gemara's real discussion is going to be centered around this case of ze nehene v'ze lo chaser, whether you have to pay for that damage or that benefit, even though there's no damage. Ha, itanis, you benefited from my property, so you should pay me rent.